Hey, welcome back to another episode of the Million Dollar Body Podcast. My name is Nate Palmer, and if you're here, it's probably because you're a high performer, a business owner, an entrepreneur, or busy professional that is interested in using fitness and nutrition to gain an unfair advantage in your life. If you're not a part of the Facebook group, definitely go to n8trainingsystems.com/group. That's where we stream these podcast episodes every Tuesday. And you can join in, ask questions, ton of cool stuff happening, massive amount of free content, information, resources. Let me know what you need. Again, go to n8trainingsystems.com/group to join us there. If you're already in the group and watching it live, we're super excited to have you because we're going to be talking today about dinner. What does your dinner need to have for you to maximize your fat loss, maximize your recovery? Because fat loss is the frame. That's how we're going to be viewing everything, because I believe that once you reach a certain level of fat loss and just being lean in your life, everything else gets a lot easier. Everything else, you're just being a great dad, being in a relationship, being a supportive spouse or husband or wife, or being an employee, owning a business, whatever it is that you do, that thing is easier when you are in shape, when you have a lower body fat percentage, just all the time. That's my opinion for sure, but it's also been proven by science. People who are leaner and exercise more make more money, it seems like. So I'm not totally just going off the cuff on this one. So we are going to talk today about dinner, how to maximize your fat loss and your recovery using specific tools. So get excited, because this is going to be a fun one. A lot of key takeaways here for you guys. So hopefully that will be something really important. But let me ask you a question first before we get too deep in the weeds. But if I had a supplement, if I had something like a pill, powder, bottle of something that could basically lower your cortisol, activate your parasympathetic nervous system, which is basically putting yourself into like that rest and digest mode that that you want to get through kind of the end of a yoga session, do meditation, so like shift you over to that parasympathetic nervous system dominance, lower like your adrenaline, help your muscles recover and rebuild, improve your sleep. What would you pay for just one serving of that supplement? $20? $10? Where I don't even know. $100? Where are you at when what would you pay for one serving? What would you pay for a bottle of that stuff? Okay. And I think this is a great question, because there is something out there right now that can do all of those things. Lower your adrenaline, shift you into that rest and digest state, lower your cortisol levels, cortisol being your stress hormone, like we'll call it the belly fat hormone. And because too much of it over a long enough period of time will cause you to store belly fat, decrease your inflammation, help you recover, improve your sleep. I have something I'm going to tell you about that you don't even need to spend any money on. You probably have it in your house already. So you might just not be using it correctly. So cortisol, adrenaline, and then sympathetic nervous system overload are really what are like a huge piece of what makes people tired, overstressed, under-recovered. And the kicker here is their bodies, from all these things, become completely inflamed. You also start overusing stimulants, which adds to that inflammation, which adds to your under-recovery, which adds to your fatigue. So it just becomes this vicious cycle where we are just completely we're fighting against our body. We're fighting against our biorhythms and our natural state of energy by trying to force ourselves like in a square peg into a round hole. And I'm going to teach you exactly how to work with your bodies rather than against them. Okay. Currently in the US, especially, we don't sleep enough. We're not getting enough sleep. The average amount of sleep, I think, is like just a shade under 6 hours per night, which is not great. We care a lot about things that don't affect us. We give our energy to things that are not that important for us, that don't need our energy. We overeat a lot of processed foods, again, adding to the inflammation. We're constantly worried. We dwell on what other people think about us. We overuse stimulants. How many people are overuse stimulants today? Yeah, me too. And then we don't consume enough of the right types of food, specifically the right types of carbohydrates at the right time. Okay, I'm going to go into that today. But I want to tell you a story about fight or flight. But as many of you guys have probably heard from previous podcasts, I started off my sales career because I applied to work at the paper at the college I went to, the Arizona Daily Wildcat, a daily paper that came out of the University of Arizona, and I wanted to be a sales rep there, sell ads. I applied, and they were like, "Nope, sorry, you can't have a job here." And I was like, "What would it take for me to get a job?" And they're like, "Well, get some sales experience, come back to us." And I was like, "Okay, got it." So someone approached me on campus. I was just sitting there minding my own business. I don't think I had headphones in, or maybe I did. But this girl named Calissa Pollard came up to me and was like, "How would you like to make $1 billion this summer?" I don't think that's exactly what she said. But she was like, do you want to make some money? And I was like, sure. Like, tell me more. And she's like, come to this informational meeting. And so I went, checked it out. And they were like, how would you guys like to work 13 hours a day, 6 days a week for 13 weeks and make a bunch of money? And I was like, okay, it sounds like trial by fire. I already need to get some sales experience. So let's go. So sign up, go through the whole process, convince my parents that I'm not joining a cult, and end up sales school in Nashville, Tennessee, and then shipped out to Ashtabula County, Ohio. I say shipped out, I mean, I drove my own car. I put 16,000 miles on my car in 3 months during that summer. And I think I put on like 3,000 miles on my car this last year. So ended up in Ashtabula County, Ohio, selling books to help kids with school, going door to door, doing sales, 13 hours a day. So generally pretty interesting job, a lot of different things, meet a lot of different people. But this one particular day, I was waiting on I guess Saturday morning. I was waiting to walk into a house or knock on the door of a house. I generally started knocking about 8 a.m. and stopped about 9:30. And so I was like 7:40 in the morning, just kind of waiting by the house, going over some of my notes for the day. And I would literally draw maps of neighborhoods and be like, this is people who've got like high school kids, they're going to buy these books. And this people they didn't want any books, but they said they go to their neighbors. And this person's name is John and Jim and whatever else. And I had these like detailed maps. I'm going over them. And out the back window of my rearview mirror, I see a guy on his phone, talking on his phone. And then he's looking at my license plate. It happens, I'm driving through neighborhoods being like, yo, you got to buy some stuff. And they're like, seems suspicious, right? People selling stuff door to door seems suspicious a lot of times. So it wasn't super like unheard of or anything. So I get out, I have my badge, I got my like he can sell books here kind of thing, that I got from like my permit. And I was like, hey, how's it going? Like just selling some books, blah, blah. And he flips out. And since then, I've kind of learned to see like a little bit more. I got a certification as an EMT, and I got to spend some time in an emergency room, as practicum for my EMT. Got to see a lot of people on meth in that time. And so now I recognize that this guy is either just doing a little bit of meth or, kind of the tail end of a trip or something, but he was crazy. He started screaming at me, saying all this stuff that was like horrible. I'm 19 years old at this time. I'm trying to make some money for college, trying to get some sales experience to get a new job. That's my goal. So he starts screaming at me, telling me that I'm this and that, and that he's going to kill me and all these things he's going to do to me. And I was like, whoa, like this went from 0 to 100 in like 1 second. So I freak out. And so I try to go get back in my car, and he grabs me by my shirt, throws me up against my 97 Nissan Sentra, and starts punching me in the face. And so I managed to shove me off him. And I get back in my car, and he grabs my pendant, my badge, and rips off my neck. I slam the door and I peel out as fast as you can in a straight 4-cylinder 97 Sentra. So that's what happened in reality. But behind the scenes, here's what was going on. And this is when we talk about central SNS, that sympathetic nervous system activation versus PNS, parasympathetic nervous system. Here's what's happening with the SNS. Okay. So it's a spectrum, right? So over here, you have fight or flight. It's really intense. That's what happens when you catch a beat down from some random meth head in Ohio. Over here, you have PNS activation, which is rest and digest. This is after you finish eating Thanksgiving with your family, and you're like, man, I just need a nap right now. So over on this side of the spectrum, here's what was going on. My body starts releasing a large dose of adrenaline in my system. My pupils get dilated. My body temperature shoots way up. My blood pressure increases. My breathing became rapid and shallow. My digestion processes were completely stopped. They just shut them off until everything, the threat was going to be resolved. Extra blood was reverted from digestion into my muscles, into my extremities, to give me the ability to escape from whatever's chasing me. Glucose, My glucose was dumped into my bloodstream, just a massive dump from the liver for quick energy, get as much energy in the system as possible. My body burned a huge amount of stored energy within that first, like that 5-minute period. And then time actually slows slightly because you become extremely in tune with the situation that's unfolding in front of you. You have like adrenaline going on. You like time slows down just a little bit. Have you ever been in a situation like that, high stress situation? Like you have like, there's like two responses. You like, number one, time slows down kind of in that moment. And then number two, when you look back on it, you're like, what happened? Like that seemed like it just went like, it's instant. So time, there's a weird like time dilation thing. So that's what happens when you hit that far end of that SNS. So hopefully you're not around like just catching beat downs on a regular basis. I really hope that's true for you. But we live our lives, you know, not over here running from cheetahs or meth heads, but we live them kind of like right here. And we just like are grinding it out with this sympathetic nervous system activation all the time in this like slight stress, slight anxiety, slight adrenaline, slight cortisol, and just like holding this pattern. Okay. And this is extremely detrimental because, like you said, like I said here, the digestion processes like slow way down, our breathing speeds up, our blood pressure goes up, and living in a state like that is taxing on your body. It's like putting your car into a lower gear and just trying to drive on the freeway in like third gear, and it's like, and like your body should not be running like that all the time. If you need to like make a quick getaway, if you need to do something to make a move, to, you know, get it, like hit your exit or whatever in your car, like yes, shift down, get up that hill, but you should not be running your car like that at all times. Okay, same with your body. You should not be running your body in sympathetic nervous system dominance at all times. So how do we avoid that? What do we get out of that? So basically, what I wanted to talk about today is how do we use our dinner as a way of avoiding that sympathetic nervous system trap, that fight or flight trap all the time, and using our dinners as a mechanism to help us shift into that parasympathetic nervous system, the rest and digest, burn more fat, have a lot of energy, like the later the day, sleep better, recover more. Okay. So if you haven't guessed it by now, the thing that we were talking about is carbohydrates. Okay. Carbohydrates, you have to have carbohydrates in your dinner. I'm a big fan of limiting carbohydrates during the day to maximize your energy and keep you in that SNS dominance. So like keep you a little bit more focused. But now we have to have a trigger to pull us out of that, because you can't go to bed like that, wake up like that, try to sleep like that. It's never going to work. You know, if you're not meditating, if you're not doing something to like shift yourself over into rest and digest, you're never going to let your body fully recover. Your mind's never going to shut all the way off. Your body's never going to fully recover. You're never going to burn as much fat. You know, even if you're doing all the right things, eating everything, and you're just still so stressed, you're never going to burn as much fat as fast as you want to, period. Okay. So I said two things you need in your dinner. Number one, you gotta have carbohydrates. Number two, we gotta have protein. You gotta have protein to help to maximize recovery. I'm gonna focus on the kind of the carbohydrate section today, because I feel like that's where a lot of stuff gets missed. For example, you may have heard like don't have carbohydrates after 7 p.m. or don't eat after 8 p.m. or something like that. That's actually based. That's a kind of a common myth that's based off of a study that researchers did where they actually kept these mice awake all night and fed them high-fat foods. And so it kind of turned into like this fitness echo chamber game of telephone where it's like, oh, I heard mice shouldn't eat fat at night. And I was like, well, what did you say? No fat at night? It's like, nah, no food at night. It's like, no carbs ever? Yeah, that's what I heard. So like you may have heard some version of this. And you know, just to be completely transparent, some people this is a good idea for. Don't eat carbs, don't eat food after blank o'clock. What it is just like it makes it binary, same as fasting, right? Keeps us be like, okay, I finished my dinner, I am done with food. That is not necessarily based in science. That's more based in behavior. So knowing the difference, knowing where you fall in that spectrum can allow you to make the right choice for your life. But here's what I know about carbohydrates is that carbs, number one, they help you recover from training. They help you build muscle. Very important. Number two, carbs help with rest and digest mode. They help you shift into that parasympathetic nervous system state. Number three, eating lighter during the day gives you more flexibility with your food at dinner. So eating out with clients, eating with your family, all good. And number four, carbs facilitate deeper sleep. Okay. So number one, carbs helping you recover from training and build muscle. They're one of the main sources of fuel for our body. So when you eat potatoes, rice, any other carb source, it's converted into glucose after digestion, and then eventually into glycogen, which is the fuel your muscles can use. I actually was doing some research on glycogen, and I'm going to do a different podcast on this at a later date. But basically, like one more reason to make sure that you're working on building muscle is that for every pound of muscle you gain, your body can store about 10 grams more glycogen. Okay. So that means if you gain 10 pounds of muscle, your body can store an extra 100 grams of glycogen, which means you can eat another extra 100 grams of carbs per day with no change to your body composition, as well as maximizing your energy. Okay. So that's a lot of bread. That's a lot of baked goods. So if you're like me and you're like, man, I like to eat carbs. I like pancakes. I like cinnamon rolls. Then you're going to want to, like, that's a great reason to build more muscle in addition to all the other amazing benefits. Okay. When you work out, when we're lifting, our muscles contract and relax repeatedly, which uses glycogen. That's what we use that fuel for. We use that within the muscle cell for energy to produce our desired result. So during the day when we're walking around, moving, going about our daily activities, we're utilizing glycogen to a lesser extent than we would during a hard training session. So any type of movement is fueled by glycogen. So that's why the amount of carbs that we're eating should be directly proportional to the amount and intensity of the training that we're doing. Competing in an Ironman triathlon is going to require a ton more carbohydrates to recover and rebuild from than a yoga session. Okay. Glycogen goes hand in hand with your body's production of insulin as well. Insulin acts as a key that takes vital nutrients, unlocks the cells of those nutrients, including glycogen, belong in. Okay. So in our systems at its very best, we are training, we're burning glycogen, we're consuming the right amount of carbohydrates, which then turn into glycogen. We are replenishing the amount of glycogen that we burned off during training sessions and throughout the day. And we're using any surplus to increase the size and density of our muscle fibers because we trained them. Okay. That's at its best. That's the system functioning ideally. Okay. But in order to do that, we have to be having carbs. Okay. And I'll talk about what kind of carbs are ideal for this a little bit later. Carbs help with rest and digest mode, number 2. So when we eat a meal that's higher in carbs, so rice, potatoes, bread, pasta, tortillas, Lucky Charms, whatever else, we get a blood sugar spike followed by an insulin release. Our body then starts to pull energy to the gut, to digestion, to aid in the process and process the food that we just ate. As an evolutionary response to this, our bodies shift into a parasympathetic nervous system, PNS, dominant state, or rest and digest. That's why you don't feel like playing pickup football after Christmas dinner. You don't have to understand like all the chemical reactions really behind the process to know that after a big meal, you want to sit back, relax, and chill out. After you eat a Chipotle burrito, you may find yourself wanting to crawl into your desk and just kick it. Okay. So we're not going to necessarily go much deeper than that, but obviously there's science backing this up. So it's important to utilize the science to our advantage to work with our body instead of against it. Okay. Eating lighter during the day, number 3, gives more flexibility with your family and your clients at dinner. So one of the main reasons that a lot of time busy professionals tell me that they have trouble sticking to a diet is because it requires them to eat differently from the people they take out to dinner, or eat differently from their families, or cook 2 different meals. It can be frustrating. I mean, annoying. We don't have a lot of time. So people make it 2 weeks, 2 months, or even grind it out for 6 months, but with like a different plans from their family. And then they're just relying on willpower, and it's tough and it's challenging. And then eventually they're like, I'm not willing to pay this price anymore, which, that's a choice we all have to make. So when you're choosing foods or you're eating lighter during the day, you have the ability to be a little more, we'll call it lax, just have a little bit more flexibility with dinner. It's another safety net that we build into our day-to-day lives to make sure that we're maximizing our fat loss, our energy, and how good we feel on a regular basis. Number 4, carbs facilitate deeper sleep. So rest and digest mode, PNS dominance, that can be gained from eating a larger meal with more carbohydrates in the evening actually helps you get deeper sleep and gets you there faster. There's an Australian study that published in the American Journal of Clinical Nutrition a while back that showed that eating a higher carb meal 4 to 5 hours before bed can improve sleep throughout the night by increasing your tryptophan and serotonin in your brain. So that was super cool. You don't need to be eating a bunch of turkey to get tryptophan. And also ham has more tryptophan than turkey. So it's not that the turkey had the tryptophan in it that made you tired. It's really just all the food you ate on Thanksgiving that made you tired. One additional benefit that same study showed was that having a dinner higher in carbohydrates can actually improve how fast you fall asleep. So if you're like this type of person who's like rocks and goes back and forth, then having more carbs at dinner can help you get to sleep faster, especially if you're having it. I wouldn't have it like an hour before. That can mess with your sleep a little bit, but as well as having higher fats before bed, like a really rich dinner, that will keep you digesting your food longer and can be a little bit upsetting to your stomach for some people. Most people will report like after eating a heavy meal, sometimes they're troubled by stomach issues or have a hard time falling asleep. But most of the time that can be traced back to rich foods being the ones that are high in fat, really not necessarily the ones that are high in carbs. But again, test this yourself. Make sure that you're doing experiments to see how your body responds to things the best way, okay? So what this means is that by simply eating in a way that aligns with your biology, your biorhythms, as well as what your families and the people you're going out and taking to dinner would probably prefer, and having a bigger dinner with more delicious carbohydrates and eating potatoes because they're so good for you, you can improve your sleep throughout the night. You can manufacture a visible shift from being on all day to that deep breath, that taking a second, okay? So you're going to fall asleep faster, you're going to sleep deeper, and you're going to avoid being a diet pariah, lugging around Tupperware to your grandma's dinner party, which she hates that. She hates it. I've told you in other episodes. I've already talked to her. She hates it, okay? So what do we do? What do we take from this? Number one is we need to make sure that we build in safety nets into our day, into our life, okay? So this is something as simple as eating light during the day and then having that and allowing yourself to be able to have a bigger meal. Because if you're, like I said before, if your carb input doesn't match your carb outputs and you're having big like carbs at breakfast, lunch, and dinner, you're not necessarily going to be able to burn fat as effectively. And that dinner is not going to be as effective because you've not let your glycogen deplete throughout the day, okay? So safety nets. The other safety net is by having higher carbs at dinner, you can like just force yourself into a rest and digest state. Safety nets, very, very important. It's easy to get wins with safety nets, okay? The next thing, having carbs at dinner, really important, great for recovery. Hopefully that you believe me and you at least will give this a shot after hearing this episode. And then the third thing is making sure that you're getting the right types of carbs. And so like a lot of times like evidence-based coaches will be like, well, a carb's a carb. It fits your macros, bro. Don't like just eat by the numbers. And that's okay, right? Like ostensibly you could eat Twinkies and pizza crusts and lose weight, like you could. But things like even just like potatoes, sweet potatoes, rice have much higher nutrient values than things like Lucky Charms, pasta, or bread for the most part. So having foods that are just more nutrient dense give you a bigger return on your is a much, let's see. Yeah, having the right types of carbs that give you like that, just the more nutrient density is going to be much better for you long term than trying to like fit in Lucky Charms to each meal. Now, does that mean you can't have dessert or you can't have Lucky Charms if you feel like it? No, totally fine. If you're going to have those foods, if you're going to have like quote unquote like dirty or cheap foods or off-plan foods or whatever, then have them for dinner. Like you can have, if you're having like protein, a carbohydrate, and a vegetable for dinner, you can have roasted beets, bison and Fruit Loops. It's okay. Like that fits the formula, that fits the framework. But don't have that all the time. Make sure that the majority of the time your baseline is those like big time satiety foods. Rice, potatoes are always going to be your best bets. So if you have any other questions about this, I don't want to beat a dead horse and say PNS too many more times. I think that's, at some point someone's gonna be like, hey, you can't say that anymore. So if you have any questions about this, drop me a comment in the group if you're watching this live, or shoot me an email. Nate at n8trainingsystems.com. Nate at n8trainingsystems.com. Shoot me an email. Let me know what you're thinking. If there's anything I can help out with. Other than that, I hope you guys are having an amazing day. I hope you eat some delicious carbohydrates for dinner tonight. Drop me a note in the group. Let me know what you're having for dinner. I can't wait to see it. And also, by the way, guys, this means you can have tacos every dinner. You can have tacos every night. And I want that for you. I want you to have tacos every night. It's really important. All right, y'all. Have an amazing rest of your day. Talk to you soon.